So, this has been the video that you guys have been anticipating to hear what my experience was like and my first impressions when it came to Lost Ark. And for those who have been following me, you guys have known that on my Twitch, I've been streaming Lost Ark. There are some days that I've streamed for like 8 hours plus, other days where I've streamed for like 12 hours, and some days where I've streamed for a couple. All in all, I've spent about 40 hours plus playing Lost Ark's closed beta test for its Western release. And to me, the closed beta test was something so magical and surreal that I am glad to say that I've spent money on the game. I bought the Founders Edition through, my own choice. I wanted to treat Lost Ark as seeing some of the gameplay in the past, as seeing people's experiences in both the Russia and Korea servers, and all just immersive gameplay, how everybody's been treating it as such a beautiful and nice game that they want to play and invest, their time into. I made the decision myself to purchase one of the Founders Edition for Lost Ark to not only set in stone a spot for me in the later actual launch of Lost Ark for somewhere in around March of next year, but to also set a spot for myself in the closed beta test to be there as soon as possible to grab my OG IGN sunset, which I was fortunate enough to do, and I'm glad to say that I did. I've enjoyed my time on the servers on Neria, and this is going to be my first impressions on the game. So when it came to the game, when it came to playing Lost Ark and, diving deep into the story, which is one of the first things I want to talk about, I actually found myself not skipping, the cutscenes. And when we look at the story here, you look on the wikis, you either watch some of the cutscenes on YouTube as a montage or whatnot, you start to see that there's a lot of lore. There's a lot of time and lore ingrained into Lost Ark. And for those who were unfortunate to, skip the story, who had the first experience of playing and were skipping it just to speed run to 50, I'm sorry to say that, there is a hard reset when it comes to this, when it comes to the closed beta. For those who don't know, you are not going to keep the progress that you had on your account prior to its launch in March. And I knew that fully well, so I found myself just, cruising by through the story, watching all the cutscenes, even in the domains, or in the dungeons rather. And, there, especially playing multiplayer, there's an option to skip. But I was that person who wasn't skipping because I wanted to watch what the story was about, how everything, every aspect of the story, whether it came to, the characters and what they wanted to achieve, and the enemies as well, and what their goals were, the conflict of the story, etc. I found myself very, very immersed into the story, into, seeing the cutscenes and the cinematics, and also when it came to dragon fights, or even that unbelievable siege gameplay, which, by the way, I have a video of that in my experience of Lost Ark. I have a whole series, and the more world quests you complete means the more regions unlocked. And through that, you get to see, the different cities, the different NPCs and characters, just the different culture and vibes of the region, how much work went into world building. And I believe that the world building is so detailed. Like, all the little things that you don't see in the background when it comes to some of these sieges and some of these wars and battles and skirmishes that you have on the side, there's so much detail and animation put into the game that I was very impressed at all of it. All the abilities, the demonic ones, the holy power, lightning, fire, everything just felt really good. The graphics felt very set in stone. I didn't find myself running into like any crazy bugs or glitches, aside from one. That one bug of the Heart of Scepter or Spencer, or I don't even remember what it's called, but I remember running into that bug. It did kind of halt me into level progression, but it was fixed rather quickly, which I was so surprised of. The launch itself was so smooth. I just want to point that out. When it came to the closed beta test launch, it was so smooth that when I was the earliest one on the NA West server, it launched at 8:20 a.m. when it was actually going to be targeted around 9 a.m. I didn't find myself, DCing at all. No DCs, no lag, rarely any lag actually. There was just like a small sliver, but I think it was through my end when it came to like my system or whatever, just handling the graphics for the first time. And it was so smooth. It was very smooth. There was no queue time as well, which I was surprised. I thought there was going to be a queue time. There was none. And I was already, a second into the server. I was already customizing my character, picked out my IGN, and I was on my way to playing the prologue or tutorial. But the world building aspects of the game are amazing. For people who are, first time players and who are watching this video just to see what it's like, I recommend that, you don't skip through the story and the cutscenes unless you are already like a veteran player on other region servers, or, someone who just kind of wants to speed run the game. Unfortunately, I feel like you're really missing out on what's going to happen. And by the way, everybody is going to hit the level 50 cap eventually, so you might as well just be immersed into the story, because that makes the gameplay so much more fun and enjoyable. Because what's the point of, leveling up through a game when you don't really know what the hell is going on, right? Then you're going to be sort of confused at like enemy mechanics and what they're doing there and things like that. Moving on to combat. The combat and, classes and picking up, the experience of playing this MMO. I played an MMO years prior to this, and this was like my first time in a while playing one. And I'm glad to say that Lost Ark was the MMO that I chose. I've tried out 2 classes during this closed beta test. I feel like I should have tried more, but I was so invested into my second class choosing that I was like, you know what? This is actually probably the class that I'm going to be maining in the future compared to the first class that I chose. And the 2 classes that I chose were both Bard and Holy Paladin. And they are so fun to play. The Bard class has so much AoE aspects to it, so much support on its end, and likewise with the Holy Paladin. But I just found myself with the Holy Paladin class, just, the mechanics and how it felt hitting enemies and like dodging and basically just doing all these crazy attacks. It felt very comfortable and smooth. Not saying the Bard class isn't, but I feel like in the future I might main Holy Paladin. But speaking of that, there are so many classes that I want to try in Lost Ark. It looks so amazing looking at all the various classes: Soulfist, Berserker, Gunslinger. All of it looks so amazing that I, just want to try all of them and buy all these character slots and being able to like play different classes, getting them to level 50 and maxing out gear. Like it seems very fun. And I recommend a lot of players do that. Try out multiple classes, see what your niche is. Don't stress too much about finding a main, because once you start playing Lost Ark, you get to see so many aspects of the game and the characters involved and all the mechanics that there's a lot to choose from. And I have a lot of difficulty when it comes to making a decision. And I have friends on like other Discords and stuff like that in my guild who want to try out different classes that they didn't get to try during the closed beta test. So once it launches, I highly recommend to try as many classes as you can as possible before you make that important decision on whether or not you want to main a class, whether or not you want to have these classes as your ult, etc. Try as many classes as you can. When it comes to the gameplay, when it comes to the combat, when it comes to dodging mechanics and, moving around as a character, when it comes to hitting enemies and things like that, a lot of it does feel very polished. And I didn't find myself struggling, crazy when it came to learning how to play this game. The tutorials help so much. I know a lot of people skip tutorials and things like that, but when it comes to this game, its difficulty is kind of up there compared to other games. So I do recommend other players, do not skip the tutorial, see what is up, see these guides on YouTube that have built upon people who've been playing for a couple years now in other regions. Watch guides on YouTube, watch how they build their skill trees and things like that. Watch how they build their classes and do, their stone upgrades and their armor and weapon upgrades. I recommend doing all these research on things when you're building your class and playing through the game. We are lucky that in other communities around the world, there are people who have invested their time into making these guides for us and, building these classes so we as the Western audience could build upon and, accumulate this knowledge, therefore, having a better enjoyable experience. I recommend doing your research when it comes to building classes, when it comes to building characters, and just playing the game, getting used to the combat, getting used to just the combat system in general. There are a lot of aspects to the game. It doesn't seem too hard to learn, but later on, once you get into these raids and things like that, and these chaos dungeons or whatnot, then there's definitely going to be some things where you're going to have to learn, like dodging enemies or mechanics, their phases and stuff like that. But don't stress too much about that. Enjoy the game, enjoy the time, enjoy the moment that you are currently spending. I have yet to try out any sort of PvP aspects in the game, so I'm not going to commentate on that, of course. Because when it comes to the classes and stuff like that, I was just heavily invested in whether or not a class really suited me and whether or not multiple classes suited me. And I was lucky enough to have the first two classes that I've played very suit my playstyle as kind of a support for teammates and, dungeon crawling and whatnot, playing, versing bosses and stuff like that. I've yet to try any of the PvP aspects of it, but I have seen gameplay on YouTube. Looks very fun, especially the little guild PvP fights and things like that. I am very much looking forward to that. And so, in short, to summarize, the PvE experience when it came to Lost Ark, when it came to, questing, when it came to the world building, when it came to, fighting bosses, whether it was with a group in a dungeon or whether it was solo in a quest line, I thought the PvE aspects were so fucking good. I don't think there were any throw-offs when it came to the PvE aspects that I experienced, other than just basic movement and stuff like that. When it came to targeting attacks with the cruiser, somewhat the aim felt a little off at times for me, especially when I was pointing there, but a character would shoot their little fucking holy paladin light the other way, and I was like, why are you shooting? There's a lot of things that go on when it comes to guilds in this game, so I do recommend also doing research on that when it comes to joining a guild, because there are benefits to that. But don't join a guild just for the benefits, because of course that's scummy, and you don't want to also on your end play with players who don't suit your playstyle, whether you're a casual or someone who's a little more veteran, experienced when it comes to MMOs and takes the game more seriously, and who wants to just truly, no life the game, which, by the way, I was doing in a closed beta test. But more on the casual end, of course. Try to find a guild that suits you. Don't be pressured to join a guild right away. There are people on the Discord server for Lost Ark who have been posting and advertising, hey, join my guild and things like that. Do your research, because I've done my research on some guilds and things like that. And I've seen some red flags when it comes to interactions and playstyle and things like that. Don't be pressured into joining a guild, but consider joining one. There are benefits when it comes to joining a guild in Lost Ark, and the benefits are pretty high and they're pretty good. And of course, it's better to join a guild because you don't want to solo queue certain dungeons and raids when it comes to this game. Relying on random party members could seem a little frustrating at times, and that's probably one of the experiences that I had when it came to queuing up for matchmaking. I think you're better off playing with friends and guild mates when it comes to future endgame content. Are there any pay to win aspects of the game? To summarize, no. It's a very ambiguous thing to actually think about as well, because if I were to describe Lost Ark's model when it comes to, profits and when it comes to, making money, I would say it's more on the side of pay to progress. And in the long run, I don't think it truly matters whether or not you spend money in this game, because it is a free-to-play game, of course. And the pay to progress thing. And once, you start doing all the aspects of the game when it comes to the cube, the tower, when it comes to like your little like daily boss things and stuff like that, trying to get drops to, enhance your weapons, to plus your armor, all of that's going to come eventually. All of that's going to come into fruition. It's pay to progress because, there are certainly faster ways to build a class, but in short, everybody's going to hit, a wall, or they're going to hit a point where they transition to an alt and start building that character. So I wouldn't worry too much about the whole pay to progress thing unless you're like trying to speedrun the game and do as much as you can and you've made the decision to pour money into the game. Then if that's more suited to you, be my guest, And there's been a lot of misinformation when it comes to this game and the business model aspects of it. That's how I would describe it, pay to progress. But eventually, you guys are all gonna hit level cap, and then from there, all the end game stuff when it comes to raids, the tower, the cube, other things like that. You'll eventually get and build a character up to speed when it comes to gear and things like that. You just gotta keep doing your daily stuff, have like some sort of routine when it comes to building a character and its specific class. Eventually, you guys are gonna catch up to some of these pay to progress players. So don't worry too much about that. It's just gonna take a little longer to progress, right? In short, when it came to Lost Ark, I really found myself just diving deep into enjoying the moments I had in the game. Enjoying all the funny dialogues between the NPCs, enjoying the combat and the crazy AoEs, and all the graphical, gory aspects of the game of whether like I'll do like some sort of ult or AoE spike and I'll be like, whoa, like the whole crowd just disperses or gets staggered and knocked back. Or even when it came to the frustration of dying to like dragons and demons and other like mobs and stuff like that, I actually found myself striving for more and didn't really care about the difficulty. I was actually matchmaking for every little dungeon on hard just to get better gear and stuff like that. And of course there'd be moments where like our whole party just gets fucking Thanos snapped by a boss's AoE attack. But every time I died, every time I fell back, every failure that I met when it came to playing the game, I truly wanted more. And we had this really nice updated Western launch that was built upon, testing from other prior releases when it came to both Russia and Korea, and we had this best version of the Western CBT, and I couldn't ask for more. It was truly a fun experience. I'm looking so much forward to playing the launch of Lost Ark when it comes to next year at the end of March. I hope to see you guys on the servers. It was a fun time playing the closed beta test. I literally just uninstalled it on Steam this morning. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt kind of sad seeing that, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go a couple months not playing this game. Like, how the hell am I gonna survive now? If you guys enjoyed this video, I appreciate if you leave a like. If you played the closed beta test, or if you're even currently playing Lost Ark right now on other regions, tell me what you enjoy about the game. I really do want to hear what you guys think in your opinions, because like, this is a game that I've made the decision to like invest into in the future when it comes to covering it in both, a creator content sense, and when it comes to just playing it as a casual player and playing it with friends and having fun. I want to hear your guys' opinions. The sun has set. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe. It's free. I'm going to make more videos like this in the future. Just to end on like a positive note, shout out to Saiwo, who's been creating content for the game since like day one. He made me see this game in such a positive light, so I recommend checking out his channel because he has like a lot of good talks on the game, how to build characters, guides, classes, things like that. He's very much more informed since he's played the game like for a good amount of time now, so definitely look at that. These are just first impressions, so if you're trying to get more research done about the game and invest heavily into it, I'm gonna link some resources down below. Some of the stuff that I used to enjoy the game as a whole. But yeah, see you guys next time.